Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. I will ride with this group. Seriously, man. Please. And away we go.
This wasn't initially planned to be a reckless speculation edition of Purple Daily.
Reckless speculation.
But it kind of feels like the Vikings are up to something. As Pat McAfee often says when he's got a project in the works, it's up to something season. We got Windy Fingers.
Windy Fingers
McAfee up to something.
Yep.
What are they doing over there hoarding all of this cap space? They made a really interesting, almost like procedural move on the Garrett Bradbury release that was like,
And
that's interesting.
And before people get upset and tune out because they're like, you guys are going to talk about Aaron Rodgers some more.
Slow week, huh?
Pat McAfee's friend is not part of what we think they're up to. That's the interesting thing.
No, we'll get there here, but let's first, a couple things here. The draft party, the 2025 Purple Daily Draft Party presented by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Also a shout out to Two Men in a Junk Truck, Roku. Judd's got the Roku mug today. Park Dental and Bricksworth and all of the partners that are helping us put this on for the fourth consecutive year. Tickets are available, scorenorth.com/draft. We're back at the Fillmore in Minneapolis, Thursday, April 24th at 7 p.m. General admission tickets available, VIP tickets available, scorenorth.com/draft. And a shout out to the Canopy Group, Judd.
Absolutely, because guess what? They're an in-state based independent insurance company that has, and this is the most important thing, folks, your best interest in mind. Much like a savvy sports executive who perhaps is dealing with the salary cap and making some interesting moves, the Canopy Group constantly on the lookout for the best talent available for your roster. The Canopy Group does the same for you with the insurance coverage. They work with what they do is 16 groups of top-tier companies to make sure that you have the best insurance available for auto, home, health, and business. That's right, across the board. And when it comes time for the renewal process, guess what? They are going to make sure that that roster remains the best, that you are getting the best possible prices, that you are getting the best possible service. The Canopy Group, they are all over it when it comes to your insurance roster. Give them a call, 1-800-967-3389, or check out their website, thecanopygroup.com. That's thecanopygroup.com, building a roster that can win you an insurance championship.
So let's spell this out here. The Vikings have been backloading contracts more than usual throughout free agency, with Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, even Byron Murphy Jr. Now, obviously, the cap continues to go up year after year, and there's a big, in 2028, it might be a huge jump with new TV contracts. So shoving money into future years is something that all NFL teams do, not completely out of the ordinary. But yesterday, the Vikings officially announced the release of Garrett Bradbury, which the release is not surprising because this has been telegraphed since they brought in the Colts center, Ryan Kelly, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the surprising part is that they designated Garrett Bradbury as a post-June 1st release. So we could get as deep into the weeds as we want here or not, but every team has two opportunities during the new NFL league year in March to release two players per team as a June 1st designation, post-June 1st designation. And that's usually reserved for players that have huge cap hits or huge dead cap numbers. And instead of taking all of that dead cap hit in the first year, you can designate him for release post-June 1st. He becomes available to sign with another team, but the cap penalty gets spread out over 2 years instead of one. So what this means is the Vikings decided with Garrett Bradbury, by post-June 1st releasing him, that they'd like to clear more cap space for 2025 and shove an extra, it's only like $2 million or like $1.5 million into 2026. And according to Over the Cap, the Vikings are already like $9 million over the salary cap in 2026 because of how much they've backloaded these free agent contracts. And they are sitting with between $30 and $40 million in cap space for 2025. And so for Bradbury all right, it's your turn to be released. for them to say, let's do it in a way that clears more money immediately in 2025 and shoves a little bit of his dead money into 2026, it does beg the question, what are they doing keeping so much cap space open for 2025? Like, they've brought in more players than we ever could have projected in our blueprint episodes. And I think there are two explanations. One, keep your options open. You know, there's been the Aaron Rodgers stuff. But keep your options open. If there's a player that pops up on your radar that you don't even really know who it is yet. And if you don't use the open cap space, you can roll. The NFL allows you to roll over cap space into the next year. So you could say, all right, we kept our options open, but let's take $25-30 million and roll it into 2026 and give ourselves some cushion. But the second explanation could be they are planning for something big, that there's a trade to be made, there is a player to be acquired, where they need to clear a bunch of room to fit that player onto their roster for 2025. What do you think they are up to?
So I would have agreed with your first assessment until yesterday. The Bradbury move is very odd because it was completely unnecessary unless there's a plan in place. You don't until yesterday I could see the reasoning, but then once you do that and you eat up a post June 1st cut with a really minuscule relative salary, I said something's going on. Egan, something is afoot. It's a word I love. It's afoot. So I think, and I will take you guys back to 2008, April of 2008, if I'm correct, okay? So one day, of course, but back then, lead Star Tribune beat guy on the Vikings beat. I'm sitting at home, and I think I got a phone call from a source of mine who said, something's going on. He said, I heard from the hallway, like Childress and Spielman and Brzezinski and the executives talking. And they were very excited. And he said the last thing I heard was something along the lines of, if we can get him, we should. And then the door slammed and they went into a meeting. And he's like, I don't know. And at the time I'm thinking, is this an offensive player? Pre-Favre. And I'm like, is this an offensive player? Like, who the hell could this be? It was Jared Allen. Oh. And let me tell you right now, I know a lot leaks out, but the reality is this: that never leaked out. That trade caught everyone, not just Zolgad, but let's go through the greats. Schefter, Glazer at the time. Like, everyone was caught by Tolson.
Chris Mortensen at the time.
Mort, that's a great one.
John Clayton.
You Ed keep Werder, him coming.
Ed Werder did not see it coming.
Nope. The late great John Clayton. That's a great one, Dex.
Love John Clayton.
He was fantastic. Complete character too. But anyway, it feels like we might something like that. Like so and we texted last night. It also feels like I think again, like with Jared, it might be something that no one is onto.
Yeah.
Like, we're all talking about Aaron Rodgers. Where's he going to go? What's he going to do? Who's holding this up? And we're all focused on that. And it feels like the people in Egan are focused on something else.
So with that,
reckless speculation.
Yeah, ordinarily all of our text thread, I feel like the three of us contains like 90% of everything. And then, we have our own little like offline conversations. An offline conversation with the former lead Vikings beat writer Judd and myself spun a little out of control last night with this speculation. Judd was at the Wild game. I was just angrily watching the Timberwolves lose to the Pacers backups. And in that text exchange, I counted the names. There were 5 big-time target names on other teams that we kicked around on that text thread for what could the Vikings be up to. Let's throw those. You start with, you pick a name, and I know you've built a couple cases already from our text thread last night. So you pick a name and let's go through these 5 players that they could be targeting with $30+ million in cap space in 2025.
So I saw some pushback to my I'm sure viral clip that Dex put out about my hottest Vikings take on Monday, which was, I think the Vikings have arguably the top offensive line in the National Football League right now. And you know what? Again, it's the hottest take, okay? So it's a hot take. I realize that. But how about this? First name I'm going to throw out. What if the Vikings complete the Colts hat trick, the trifecta? And this came from a listener threw it out on Twitter, but I loved it and I looked it up and it's been out there as a possibility. Quenton Nelson, the 7-time Pro Bowl left guard, Ryan Kelly at center, Will Fries at right guard, former Colt. Quenton Nelson, though, is the gem of that line. He's one of the best in the business. He is signed through 2026. He turns 29 tomorrow. Happy birthday. His cap hit is $22.7 million in 2025, $24.2 in 2026. What if you complete the trifecta? That would be a massive splash, gentlemen.
Speculation.
I think it'd be hilarious, like if you're a Colts GM or anyone, and just all right, we lost 2 of our guys in free agency. Like we can't help that. Are we really going to let the other team take away the other? Now, I don't think Quenton Nelson's like untouchable, but it would be if you're a Colts fan and you're like watching this roller coaster of a coaching staff that you have right now. Your quarterback's not doing too hot. Are you really going to let the Minnesota Vikings take your 3rd starting offensive lineman within a week? I would find that if I was a Colts fan, I would be so upset if that happened. If I'm a Vikings fan, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first initial thought when Judd floated this name via text. I was like, could the Vikings really just get, because the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Mm-hmm. Could it really be as simple as, here's our plan. Let's just poach 60%. We've already gotten 40%. Let's poach 60% of the best offensive line in the NFL. But when you dig on this, ESPN.com actually speculated 2 months ago that Quenton Nelson is a prime trade candidate as they look to remake the chemistry in the room and maybe get a little younger in certain spots. Judd mentioned the cap hit. So he's 29 years old, 2 years left on the deal. Quenton Nelson has the 3rd highest cap hit on the Colts roster. So could they be looking to just maneuver for the next few years? We don't really know what's going on inside the walls of the Colts complex, but there's been a little steam over the last couple months, and they've clearly been open to shaking up the rest of their offensive line. But yeah, PFF had him as the 4th overall highest graded guard in the NFL last year and 4th in pass protection grade. Only 20 pressures allowed all season by Quenton Nelson. Blake Brandel, by the way, at left guard had almost 50 pressures allowed. So, and it's, we're talking like 1 or 2 a game difference between the best and the mediocre pass protecting guards. But that's all that. It could be a key 3rd down.
Yep.
It could be a stunt that gets picked up or not.
Yep.
So that's a really interesting one. And as far as I know, the Vikings wouldn't pick up the entire cap hit on that trade because some of that cap hit is bonuses already paid out. So you'd be on the hook for, I think he's got like a $12 or $14 million base salary and maybe some other future bonuses. So it actually be a little bit less of a cap hit than the Colts are taking on right now.
And what a great response to being spurned by Daniel Jones, right? Oh, you're leaving us for the Colts? Oh, that's cool. Here's your protection. 3 swinging gates.
Yeah. Have fun. So what would that, just real quick, one more thing on, and we'll get to the other names here. Mm-hmm. Would that cost you your 24th overall pick, probably? For a premier...
It would cost you something equivalent, probably, of that. I guess my question is, what draft would you have to dip into? 24 this year?
Or
which is very possible. Could there be a different trade? But yes, it would cost you something right along those lines, for sure.
Okay.
But my God, would your offensive line be good? With Darisaw and O'Neal as the bookends?
That'd be the best left side in the business, right? If Darisaw comes back healthy and you've got a top 3, top 5 left tackle and a top 3 left guard, I mean,
that would legitimately be the best line then, right?
On paper, they would have a case to be made. I mean, the Eagles and the Lions would still say, "Hey, come get some." But yeah, it would be it'd be in that conversation.
You want some?
All right, let me throw a name out.
Reckless speculation.
This name first surfaced a year ago via the Purple Daily Anonymous tip line. And if I could be honest, you guys all laughed at us when we threw this name out. You guys, the audience was like, you've taken reckless speculation a bridge too far. You have jumped the shark with your reckless speculation. And then I think it was the night of the draft. Because it was like during the first 10 picks, and Adam Schefter confirmed that yes, indeed, the Vikings have had discussions with the Chargers about Justin Herbert. That it confirmed the validity of the anonymous Purple Daily tip we received back in February or March. And Nick Wright from Fox Sports 1 even speculated on this. He said the Rodgers stuff doesn't make sense, but if you were going to move off, if you were a little bit either sour or maybe had questions about J.J. McCarthy, why would you continue to kick that can down the road for a 41-year-old when you could go get a 27-year-old Ferrari? And so Justin Herbert, let's talk about him. What are they doing with all this cap space? Well, Justin Herbert, average annual value, $55 million. You'd have to create a ton of space to get a guy like that. And I know that he's had some struggles in the postseason in the 2 playoff games he's played in, and you have a sour taste in your mouth based on the fact that he threw more interceptions in 1 playoff game than he did the entire regular season. But he is still undeniably one of the 6 to 7 most talented starting quarterbacks in the league. Kevin O'Connell could probably look at that and say, let's get you to the next level. Let's get you on that Josh Allen, Joe Burrow level, teach you how to navigate some of these late game situations. And on the Harbaugh side, J.J. McCarthy is it's like J.J. McCarthy and Andrew Luck are the 2 favorite quarterbacks he's ever worked with in his career coaching. And if you're the Chargers, you had the 5th fewest pass attempts in the NFL last year, and that's not a fluke. The Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offenses are very, very run heavy. They just added Najee Harris and Mekhi Becton, a road grading starting right guard. They're not looking to jump into the top 10 in pass attempts next year. In fact, they're probably looking to run the ball even more and more effectively. Do you really need to be paying a quarterback $55 million to not throw the ball? So it made sense a year ago, and it still kind of makes some sense. I'm not putting the likelihood any higher than like 10%, but it is a conversation that was had a year ago. Justin Herbert.
So the trade is potentially just from a cap standpoint too. So if it's a pre-June 1st trade, the Chargers can't date it that way because it would leave $95.2 million in dead cash on their cap. It would save them $57.8. If it was post-dated though, June 1st, that would decrease it to $22.3 million dead, and then give them savings of $15 million. This one to me is interesting because, like, the fact that the Vikings called a year ago now, and that can be proven, we know that, makes this a conversation. Like, they called once, and the contract it has not changed. I am really enamored with the rookie QB contract personally, but it's interesting, and you got to wonder from a Harbaugh Chargers perspective how much that playoff game left a bit of a scar. Because, I mean, it was really bad.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as you just said, they are, if anything, it looks like they're going more towards the run. So if you're Herbert, are you saying, oh, hold on a second here. Wait, what? Like, yeah, I had a bad game, but I'm still a pretty good quarterback here, right? So from a financial standpoint, I don't love taking on that contract, but I do, again, in the world of what are you doing back there, Vikings?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on in that back room? Why can't I come in? Why are you not allowing me in? It's at least a plausible discussion.
Yeah, I think the only way you would ever do this if you're the Vikings, because, and you wouldn't, again, the Chargers are on the hook for a big chunk of the cap hits. You would actually get, from a cap perspective, a discounted version of Justin Herbert contractually. But I think the only way you would do this is if you thought, yeah, he is like one of those 5 or 6 top dudes in the NFL. The top 4 are kind of established. You Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Joe Burrow.
Yep.
And then there's the next group that are being paid like those guys, but maybe aren't carrying the franchise like those guys. And I think that's a group you got to be really careful about being in, where you're paying great money to guys that aren't carrying your franchise. Right now, Justin Herbert is not on that top level, scouting wise, talent wise, and some of the stretches he has shown you. He's played on that level for stretches. Kevin O'Connell would have to say, "Oh yeah, we can get him on that level all the time and win Super Bowls with him."
Right.
Otherwise, if you don't believe that he is a top 5 guy, then why would you pay him like that and jettison probably J.J. McCarthy, and you probably have to kick something else in? It's probably like J.J. and a third, or is it they're going to ask for J.J. and a first? I don't know what that trade would look like. It's like maybe J.J. plus something for Justin Herbert.
So the interesting thing here is I think that O'Connell has answered your question already, because they did call. Because they wouldn't have called the Chargers if O'Connell didn't say, "Oh yeah, let's call," right?
But that was a year ago. It was before you got to see McCarthy in training camp and slay the Raiders in the game.
Sure, but I'm just saying, but he clearly thinks that if he gets his hands and molds like Clay Herbert, that he can do something there. Mm-hmm. So, because we know for a fact there's quarterbacks he doesn't like. And if they had never called on Justin and we didn't know a thing about it, I'd say no, they're not going to. But in this case, we do know that. And so, yes, McCarthy is definitely somebody that they like, but it is interesting that it's sort of like going to creep up again, that this guy they called on a year ago, whose contract again hasn't changed. It's not like he signed a huge extension between last April and now, is at least in the crosshairs of, hey, you know what? This could be intriguing. I think it's a huge, huge long shot. But that being said, I think the Vikings have opened themselves up to the reckless speculation lifestyle.
I'm pretty critical of Justin Herbert. Obviously, that's been known on the show. And I don't think he has graduated into that bracket of pay him and figure out the rest, like the Burrows and the Lamar Jacksons, etc. So I would be hesitant to do something like this. I'd rather you try it with J.J. McCarthy than fork over a bunch of guaranteed money and also, future assets to bring in Justin Herbert. I would not. That wouldn't be my first plan of attack to have your next Super Bowl quarterback.
Yeah, but to Judd's point, it is interesting that a year ago, the Vikings did a lot of the calculus on this and said, we know how much money he makes, and we know some of his little flaws here that need to be ironed out, and we are still going to make that phone call and inquire about him because we think he's arm talent. He is top 5 in the NFL. Just some of the ridiculous throws that he makes. He's very athletic. So he's got some Matthew Stafford arm talent. He's got some, I don't know if I would say quite Josh Allen mobility, because Josh Allen is one of the most athletic quarterbacks to ever play.
He's slippery.
He's got major ability to slide around and avoid rushers. So, all right. Judd, why don't you throw another name out?
Okay.
What are the Vikings? What are the Vikings up to?
What are you guys doing back there? Can I come back? No. Why not? All right. Here's one that we can actually tag. In fact, it's a callback. I'm talking to you, Jets, and I'm talking to you, Sauce Gardner. So, okay, so hear me out here. Hear me out. Sauce, Jets fans, I know you're upset. Sauce is not. He's like, I'd love to go play for the Vikings. But this actually, so I did some more digging last night. So, reckless but informed. I come to you informed. The Jets are a franchise that one is, until Rick Spielman helps turn them around, a mess. They are also notoriously pretty damn cheap, right? I give you the fact that yesterday, Derek Stingley Jr. got paid by the Houston Texans. He was picked in the 2022 draft, one spot before Sauce, who's damn good. The contractual numbers that came out on Stingley, and I know that, again, as I've said, I preach skepticism, but the contract that came out that Sauce saw, so Sauce, you saw this, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm getting paid too, is $90 million. Don't ask me why. 89 of it guaranteed. I don't know why they just didn't guarantee the entire thing. And Derek Stingley Jr.'s $30 million average creates a new high for cornerbacks, replacing the contract that J.C. Horn did last week, okay? So a guy who was picked in the same draft, who was picked in basically the same exact territory as Sauce, just got paid. Now, the Jets are cheap. Let me go back to that.
And they're rebuilding.
And if you remember, 2022 draft, Jets didn't have one. They had 2 top 10 picks. Both of them are coming up for contracts. Garrett Wilson, the receiver, and Sauce were taken 6 picks apart. And both, I checked this out on the Over the Cap and Spotrac last night. Both are entering the final seasons of their rookie contracts. They need to get paid.
There will be a 5th-year option likely picked up on both.
Right, but they can be extended soon.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
the point is it's decision time. And this is why I think this becomes, I actually think, because the offensive line's been addressed pretty well, like Quenton Nelson would be he's outstanding. He's a great guard. And that one would solidify you to have one of, if not the best line for real in the entire league. But this team needs a cornerback, and this team needs a shutdown cornerback. Byron Murphy Jr. is good. Sauce Gardner, I think, is in a different league.
Yeah.
This one of the cases I put together, knowing that the Jets are going to have to make a decision, and I don't think they're going to pay both guys. And Garrett Wilson is very excited to play with Justin Fields, and I think the Jets are sincerely hoping that works. I think Sauce Gardner is the most real case that I will make today, even if you naysayers don't.
Wow. And Garrett Wilson being, so that's a bonus name. That's the 5th. I'll give you the 5th name, but he's the 4th name, with Sauce being the 3rd name in our text thread. So let's start on Sauce for a second. The thing that I guess I question in terms of what are the Vikings doing here, why are they clearing a bunch of cap space for 2025, is that you wouldn't need to use that 2025 cap space on Sauce Gardner, because he's not going to get, even if you extend him at the Derek Stingley level, that money doesn't really start to kick in big time for 2 more years. I guess you could like unprecedented rip up, but if you're the Vikings and you were to acquire Sauce Gardner, his base salary this year is $1.1 million. And his cap hit, even with the Jets, with the bonuses paid out, is I think it's under $10 million. So, and I think he's under contract there. So any extension would kick in after that and maybe start to trickle into the 5th-year option, 6th year. So you would never forego that type of a discounted year on one of the best players in the NFL.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't add up from that perspective. But from an on-field perspective, people might look and say, he only has like 3 interceptions in his career. He's overrated.
Throw at him.
You want to know why? Yeah, they literally don't throw at him. He was targeted last year in 15 games that he played. He was targeted 47 times all season.
Yep.
Byron Murphy, who's very good, was targeted 110 times by comparison. So almost, that's 2.5 times as many targets, because you feel like, we can kind of pick on Byron, or we're not afraid to go at Byron Murphy. Teams are game planning to avoid throwing the ball to Sauce Gardner's side of the field. Opposing quarterback passer rating in the 3 years of Sauce Gardner, 67.5. So when opposing quarterbacks target Sauce Gardner, they have a 67.5 passer rating. For some Vikings context, that's 8 points lower than Brooks Bollinger's career passer rating. So,
why the Bollinger slander?
Okay,
Friend
it
of the
is.
show.
I looked
Hi,
this one up
Brooks.
too. Jamarcus Russell, the biggest
that's
bust number.
That's better.
It is 1 point better than Jamarcus Russell's career passer rating. So from an on-field standpoint, could you imagine having Sauce with Byron Murphy, and then you got your Mekhi Blackmons and Isaiah Rodgers? It's game over. But it doesn't quite explain why you would need all this cap space in 2025. You could roll it over and help cover the contract in future years. Garrett Wilson, there's been a ton of Garrett Wilson trade speculation. But again, like he doesn't get super expensive for 2 more years. And you already have, I kind of see him as interchangeable with Jordan Addison in some ways. He's not a number one. As Justin Jefferson said, I ain't Garrett Wilson earlier last year.
Respectfully.
So would you? I don't really see how that move makes sense. But there is another wide receiver to round out this list
Okay.
that I could see.
Reckless speculation.
What are the Vikings up to? Why won't you let us in that room? What's going on behind those closed doors over there? What are
Guys,
you
it's
doing?
lunch. It's lunchtime.
You guys go ahead without us. We're working on something. What are you working on?
You sure you don't want something?
Well, do you guys remember back in January when one of the top wide receivers of this generation, who's still only 31 years old, demanded a trade from the Miami Dolphins? Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, they all got behind closed doors and had the exit meeting, and Mike McDaniel came out and Tyreek Hill came out and said, oh, yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Well, Miami feels pretty stuck right now. They've got a quarterback making $55 million. They can't stay on the field with concussion issues. He also can't win in cold weather, and a lot of the AFC teams you're playing late in the year are cold weather teams. You're playing the Buffaloes in your division. You're playing the Steelers in the AFC. Baltimore, Cincinnati, some of those are cold games you're playing in December, January. It feels like Miami was really fun for like 2 years and really fun in September, October, and early November. And now it kind of feels like they're coming back down the other side of the hill. And Tyreek Hill has 2 years left on his contract, probably a year or two left of prime. He had a big drop off last year, but you can attribute that to just like backup quarterbacks and things. Could you be looking at something like that where it's you got to clear $25-ish million in space? He could come in here. Maybe he comes in as like a second receiver and Jordan Addison's the third, or it lines up a Jordan Addison trade on the other side. But Tyreek Hill demanded out 2 months ago. Similar offensive system here from the Shanahan tree, right?
Yeah.
And could you imagine if you had those three dudes, Jefferson, Addison, and Tyreek Hill, and TJ Hawkinson, with JJ McCarthy stepping in first-year starter?
Would you? Oh, okay. I like this. Recklessly speculating completely. Now, I am taking this to a different place.
Speculation.
Bear with me, please. So the Sauce Gardner point's a good point. Would you do a trade with the Jets? Now, Jordan's contract it's cheap right now, but it could be a problem, but it's not a problem right now. Would you do an Addison trade to the Jets with a little something else for Sauce Gardner?
Oh, my God.
And then get Tyreek Hill?
So it'd be two trades. It would be...
Right, but that would answer your it doesn't make total sense with the salary cap thing.
So it would have to be... I think a lot of Vikings fans think that like Addison is more valuable than Sauce, but that is patently not true. If you zoom out to the NFL, Addison is a really good number 2 receiver. Maybe could be a number 1, but that's not been proven. He's not on the Justin Jefferson level. Plus, there is a surplus of really good wide receiver talent right now coming out from college. There are not very many absolute shutdown, do not throw at them cornerbacks in the world. So supply and demand here. Sauce Gardner more valuable to his supply and demand than Jordan Addison. So it's probably Addison plus something else.
Right. Yep.
Plus a first?
No,
I don't know.
No, I don't think it's
A
a first. I
third?
think it might be a third. Sweetener. Just a little dab of spices on top of the trade.
And then, whatever. We can figure out those trade details. But then it would have to be, I think it's something other. Dude, Deebo Samuel was incredible and then had a down season.
Right.
Around the same age, maybe a year younger than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, who 2 years ago led the league in receiving yards and touchdowns, but that's 2 years ago. And then last year, his value went down.
Agreed.
It was a 5th-round pick to acquire Deebo Samuel, so it's not going to be a first-round pick to get a Tyreek Hill.
No.
Could you ship Addison plus maybe your 2nd-round pick in 2026 or something for Sauce, and maybe it's like a 2nd and a 5th.
And by the way,
it's gonna be something
I'm
big.
on board right now.
Okay. And then it's your 3rd-round pick for Tyreek Hill in 2025. So you still keep your first 2 5ths. You probably trade back from your first to get some extra draft capital.
And if it's a 3rd-round pick, because you're right. Like, he's an aging veteran who still has some time left, but it's not extended. He's not cheap, but that would allow you then to backdoor the contract in on your cap for 2025. Take the Sauce contract, which to our point here, is not much, but that would explain it. And then with Jordan, because I keep coming back to this. Two things. Addison is going to be suspended for 3 games. He just is.
And he will be traded before they pay him.
And yes,
but
and
there's a 2-year window for that.
Correct. And yes, Tyreek Hill can be a pain in the ass, but that's more short term. And the other thing too is, it's become very clear, and I think it's the reason why the McCarthy thing has actually turned into a conversation. It's become very clear that coming off a 13-win season, this team is going for a Super Bowl immediately.
Yeah.
So there's no hey, in 26.
They are, and I know your heads are probably spinning after 30,
the
35
notes on
minutes
Twitter
here.
right now. Oh, they're nasty.
Oh, God.
But they are bending over backwards to shove money into future years to clear more space for something immediate.
Correct.
And whether something comes to fruition or not, we will find out. And they can roll over the cap space if they have 25 million unused or 30. They can roll that over.
Oh, boy.
But they're doing this for a purpose. What is that purpose? Those are just 5 ideas right there.
That last one, though, actually is plausible to me, because that would explain everything.
I mean, I think it's still a little fantasy. It'd be awesome. I think it'd be awesome. I think that likelihood is very small that both those things happen. Less than 2%. I'm sorry to be Buzz Killington, but
no.
I
I wonder if it's a different. I wonder if it could be a different receiver, though. I keep coming back to one thought that wakes me up at night. This team is addressing everything for the right now to win, except corner. So what if you got a young shutdown corner? And Phil, your point is spot on, which is, do not look at the statistics. Don't look at, he's not targeted much. He's not targeted much because no one wants to throw at him, including the Vikings.
Correct.
So that's the whole point. The whole point is, if I siphon everything towards Byron Murphy Jr., dude's going to get a ton of picks, and Sauce pays for himself.
Yep. Just head on a swivel, Vikings fans. Head on a swivel right now. Yeah. Between now and the draft and
don't forget,
summertime.
2008. What are the Vikings doing?
When did that trade happen? What
April,
time?
Right before the draft.
Okay.
Right.
So
right before
definitely
the draft.
head on a swivel right now.
Oh yeah. And that trade again came up from, I think, some, I don't know if KC called or the Vikings called, but it was sort of we'll trade this guy. He's disgruntled in Kansas City. And then it just sort of percolates and nobody gets wind about it and doors get closed. Mm-hmm. It just I feel that again.
Yeah. Okay, the show is not over because Mel Kiper has spoken this morning they're not calling it a 2.0. There must have been some discussion behind the scenes. We got to stop with the 2.0, 3.0. It's the post first week of free agency mock draft for Mel Kiper here. A shout out to MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air. We saw our friends at the Purple Daily Unplugged event last week from MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air.
Yeah, and it was a ton of fun. But you know what was more fun for Sports Dad? It was more fun for Sports Dad the week before when MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air and their experts showed up at my house and put in a new water heater and a softener. And by now, you are familiar with the Sports Dad story that the old ones were from 1994. They were decrepit. They were old. The MSP folks came to my house and they didn't say, oh man, your house is going to blow up if you don't change this. No. They just explained what was necessary. They came in, they did the work, and it was absolutely outstanding. And now also, they have partnered with our friends from Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Store for the Big Green Egg giveaway. You can win this grill by booking a repair. It's this simple. Get $60 off any HVAC or plumbing repair, and you will be entered for a chance to win the medium-sized green egg, by the way, a value of $1,000. For service, call MSP 651-615-4292. Or check out their website, callmsp.com. Call msp.com. And again, thanks to our friends from Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Store for partnering with our friends from MSP. And you see, it's all one big happy family, gentlemen.
Minnesota Rusco, I think, is one big happy family as well. Cody and Casey doing a great job over there, helping to make people's remodels a reality. Since 1955, Minnesota Rusco has been Minnesota's hometown remodeler, whether it's windows, doors, siding, bathroom, kitchens, decks, roofing. Minnesota Rusco has you covered with 70 years of experience. You can count on them for anything interior and exterior. And throughout the rest of March, everything at Minnesota Rusco is 20% off. No interest and no monthly payments for a full year. So you get to save 20% and you make no interest, no monthly payments for a year. Sounds like a great deal if you're asking me. Some of the reviews too, I like to sleuth around and just make sure what are people saying about companies like Minnesota Rusco? Well, Diane said Minnesota Rusco is the best from start to finish. Each person I came into contact with was very knowledgeable. They explained everything, reviewed all the details, and made this an easy process. Thank you, Minnesota Rusco. Find out more at minnesotarusco.com.
I want a mock.
All right. Mel Kiper, the godfather of mock, has spoken here. And this is the post-free agency, or first week of free agency anyways, round one mock draft. He does not have trades yet, so take this with a grain of salt, I guess. He's got Cam Ward going number 1 to the Titans. Mm-hmm. Browns taking edge rusher Abdul Carter number 2. Shedeur Sanders 3 to the Giants. Travis Hunter 4 to the Patriots. Ooh, he's got Ashton Ginty going 6 to the Raiders.
Oh, up to 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dangerous. He has Jackson Dart, quarterback Ole Miss, going 9 to the Saints.
Oh, so
the highest we've seen him.
He's jumped Shedeur now, correct?
Shedeur is 3rd to the Giants.
Oh, 3rd to the Giants. I'm sorry.
Yep. And wow. Omari and Hampton, running back North Carolina, 12 to the Cowboys.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because they take Ginty.
It's wild.
If they could.
And then let's scroll down here and get to the 24th overall pick, where the Minnesota Vikings, according to Godfather Mock, Mel Kiper, select out of Texas cornerback Jahdae Barron.
I want a mock.
I think that'd be a steal according to the universal big boards here. Minnesota made some big splashes in free agency as it tries to take the NFC North from the Lions. Among them were deals to re-sign Byron Murphy Jr. and bring in Isaiah Rodgers, but I'm not sure the Vikings should or will be done adding at the cornerback position. Jahdae Barron picked off 5 passes last year, showing ball skills. He ran a 4.39 40 at the combine, showing his speed, and he's played more than 600 snaps at both slot and outside corner the past 2 seasons, showing his versatility. I really like this fit for the Vikings.
That's interesting.
No.
But wait. But by the time draft night arrives, Sauce is going to be on the Vikings roster.
Well, that's the beauty of these mocks. It
So
doesn't take into account our brilliant, reckless speculation from today.
So they can just trade back. So the Vikings can now trade back, accumulate more picks. It'll be great.
Yeah. So Jahdae Barron, I'm just going to see what else he is. If he has anything crazy the rest of the first round. Any other quarterbacks? No. Okay. Yeah, this makes sense for now.
Yep, for now.
We'll see.
Although Mel not doing trades, I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah,
I feel like we're
it's
close.
Mel, what are you doing all year, dude? I mean, this is your life.
Exactly. Make some trades.
Yeah.
Make some trades. So he's still pretty much going chalk on Shedeur as well, which it feels like the rest of the draft nicks are not now.
I heard this morning he was on, I think it was Get Up, and he still, in his mind, Shedeur is the number 1 quarterback on his board. But these mock drafts are what he thinks the teams will do. So he still loves Shedeur Sanders.
Interesting.
Yep.
I feel like Cam Ward is pulled away in the minds of most of the draft folks.
Yep. All right, boys. Well, that got saucy, didn't it?
That got very Thursday. Like
maybe we can run a couple of these ideas by our guy Darren Doogie Wolfson too. He's always got his ears on the ground.
Yeah. Well, he's got to know something's going on, right?
Yeah, he did. He caught up with Blake Barrett. I saw he had a big sit down with Blake Barrett. So maybe some ideas.
Gathered any intel here. Yeah. So look out for that scoop session. And we got some write that down predictions tomorrow. Maybe some of these speculative ideas come to fruition and write that down for him tomorrow. But that's the Sports Dad. Dex, our producer. I'm Phil, and this is Purple Daily, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.